Okay, so this is why we play war games. During this last turn, my heart has actually been beating faster. The excitement, I think there's something about living with a game for so long, being so involved, that some of these die rolls and moves are just exciting. Okay, so here we go. It's only 6:30, so it's only the second turn on the 17th, but a lot of things been happening. If I look back from here, anyone joining this video or not following the rest of the series, just look, it looked quite a mess of units all over the place. But there are some really key things happening this turn. Okay, so let's go around to the north. And you can see in the middle of the picture, one of the reasons we're going around to the north is that huge pile of Russian routing, not just this organised routing cavalry. Okay, so so it leading up from the last game, we know the north is a real problem for the French because of these guys almost at the gates of Leipzig and cutting off particularly this route here, which is the only route through the marshes, to the French supply lines, and fighting there has been intense. Now the French in quite a bad way, okay, admittedly, as we can see from the fatigue here, the coalition's been quite fatigued. So one of the things that the French player looked at doing was they had accumulated a large cavalry force. They took longer to get across here, across the river, the small river here, than they had hoped, but they've made quite an impact. Turn before, first light, they'd smashed into the large Russian cavalry force that was here. A lot of Cossacks in it now, which are great scouting troops, good at chasing down disorganised guys, but not good at standing toe to toe. And they're wiped away, and they've just, half of them did that, the other half have come in this turn, you can see by the post-charge counters, and just routed this line here, with the intention of trying to pull the coalition's attention away from driving into Leipzig, which they have and haven't done. I'm going to have to really think about this, because what happened along the rest of the line is as many forces as possible were making their way back towards Leipzig. Still too much trouble with them being caught out. We can see quite a few units here that are travelling down. We've got a lot of the artillery, the remaining artillery, because there's not a lot of remaining artillery amongst the French, especially at this end, making their way back down there, trying to be screened as much as possible by the units that are forcing. There looks like quite a reasonably strong French force there, but there's not. There's a lot of those units are very much depleted. However, the charge here has had an effect because it has just routed. I mean, look at that. That's an horrific view for the coalition player to have, is that the forces that were in this area along the banks here of the river have turned around here, and you can see most of them have gone into square. Got a little bit of artillery here, but most of the artillery has come, but it's sitting down the square, but hasn't had the time to limber up yet. A little bit of cavalry have come across. Whether it's enough to check this, probably. You know, without an infantry force to back these guys up, okay, they can force these guys to square, possibly get a few units round here, but it's very hard for them to make any substantial progress just on their own. There's no guns to support them. You know, there's no point getting the Prussians and the Russians into square, and they can't really do much about them at all. There's a little remnant of the original action over here. This has gone back and forth, and somehow these Russian guns have managed to stand. So when it came to the coalition turn, they did that, but they did just carry on pushing as well into Leipzig. Look here, so we can see the coalition forces here streaming to it. They can't make any progress here yet. They need to clear around the edge here, and there was you can see a few some disorganised units here. That was from the fantastic defence Marshal Ney put up. Unfortunately, it didn't last forever though, and Marshal Ney, here he is now a casualty of war. So we won't be seeing him anymore in Napoleonic battles. But it did buy the French some time to try, and you can see the infantry pulling down here as much as they can to get into this area here. You know, the benefit they have is that the only benefit that really the French have in this little area here is that the coalition are pretty fatigued. So it's a real mess there, but just the nightmare of what's happening here on this road here, or the potentially, I mean, anything that's routing, I'm carrying or disorganised, I'm bringing them along as far as I can across that causeway. Let me step back. And we see we've got a group down over here, just bringing them along here. And even when they rally, they're out of command. But I prefer to have them down here. They can be in command later in the game and maybe defend the causeway. But I've got to try and keep that clear as possible. Now, Napoleon's committed his only reserve. The only reserve he has, which is the Old Guard, which are almost just actually marching through the city of Leipzig at the moment. I think they will easily hold those. You know, I think they will. You know, it's good terrain. It's very hard here to bring up sufficient artillery to pound this area here. So I think that will stabilise it. So for the first time since in game turns yesterday evening, I think this might hold. Now the problem is, what do you do with it? Holding it's fine. We're not going to make any more progress there. 9 o'clock there is a French corps arriving, so we're going to wait for that before deciding exactly what we're going to do. Well, probably a bit more withdrawal. The problem we're having here is that over the river here, after their initial success, the French of trying to clear the Austrians out of the way, it's all gone a bit wrong. And we can see we have a lot of disorganised French units here. Hopefully they might rally, but not for a turn or two. And the Austrians have advanced all over, mopping up units, disorganised this cavalry charge here, took out one set of guns in the side, disorganised the rest. You know, it's not looking good for the French at all, because what the idea, if I step back here, is Napoleon really wanted this area cleared so he can start feeding units across into this area. You know, I'm not sure the Austrians have enough to really attack this fortified area, and beginning next time a lot of these are going to be out of command. There's the commander there, because they've sort of split up in different directions, so it'll be a turn or two of pulling that together, but it's not what Napoleon wanted. He wanted that clear to be an area that he can withdraw to without any serious considerations. Now over here on the sort of the main line, and again this wasn't planned at all, the French withdrew back as far as they can, a couple of hexes, and I just thought, what's happening over here in the north? The coalition just push on, so all along the line. One of the main things that happened is, for anyone watched the last video, there was a large coalition cavalry force here, which threatened over here, and you can see lots of squares were formed. One wasn't, so we have a small gap in the line here. Other units were pretty well repulsed along there. The guards have pushed into the southern end of this town here, and there's some pretty powerful units in there. They're going to wrap that up quite quickly. There's been a big push on here, which has blown a hole in the Young Guard here. As we know, this Young Guard unit here is under, well, it's not doing very well anyway. Lots of units, lots of cavalry here. It's quite hard to get this artillery offensively used at the moment, because the French are pulling back faster than we can bring the guns up. Obviously a deliberate policy. Now over here, the French have pulled back here and up here, and again sort of instead of attacking up here, we have put up the artillery, but there was a small attack around this village here, and enough, because I wasn't really keeping track of it, enough to actually put Wittgenstein's corps over the army morale, or the corps morale for that. So they're not in a good way at the moment, and that's definitely going to stifle that attack. There is no reason for the coalition to push hard when they've got so many reinforcements coming tomorrow. So they do have these guys, they have these Austrians coming up here, so that's going to stabilise that. So if I sort of step back from what looked, even after the first French turn, it was going to be a complete rout of the French army and just a complete mess in the centre of Leipzig here, now has a tiny glimmer of hope for the French. I wouldn't say more than that. I mean, it's been very, very exciting to play. The key is, I guess, is what the French can make of it. Wittgenstein's corps here, which was going to envelop round here, they've gone. The Austrians turn or two away. Cavalry here, they can blunt them. Okay, maybe can't stop them, but they can halt them at least for a while. Okay, this push up here is ominous, but there is quite a lot of good defensive terrain here, so that's going to be slow and reasonably expensive. Okay, this is a nightmare, and as the French, I've been looking for any units I can take out the line to bring down here, just to give this enough to just get rid of these Austrians, and there's nothing. There is absolutely nothing. So the real worry here is that the Austrians push up with a line here, and then as the French come across, because as they break and come across here, this is just going to get filled up, and it's going to be a complete catastrophe for the French, and that is still the worry. However, with the Guard coming in Leipzig here, hopefully stemming that a little bit, we shouldn't have this road cut off. We still have a lot of routing French units, not routing, disorganised French units that have to withdraw this way towards a line of communication. This still could get a little bit bunged up, but there's a little bit of hope there. I think this very, very successful cavalry assault on this side, I'm not sure who's actually done that. Which corps is that? Cavalry corps there. Let's have a look. Here we go. It's got Alamander cells there. Let's put you into focus. Okay, with his second cavalry corps done really well there, but he is fatigued as well. The problem with the fatigue and the morale penalty you get with it is it makes, well, I think I've said this in a few other videos, it makes combat very dicey indeed. Now possibly the French will want to take a risk. They've got nothing to lose at the moment, but I'm not sure that the I'm really not sure that the coalition do. I think the only benefit we have is I suppose if the French could chase these right off the map, they've gone forever. Okay, if these can be left here in a routed state, you know, if I don't do anything with them overnight, they will rally, so they will be there. Though, you know, as we move in towards this section of the battlefield, cavalry, well, less important. We're really down to infantry. Guns to some extent, if you can get them set up. I mean, they're good at point blank, but once you get into this massive houses and villages and things, it's really an infantry battle. So here we go. Super exciting turn. We can see that, I mean, you know, I've talked about some benefits for the French, but they have a couple more army morale failings. We can see that, who we got here? Okay, Victor's Corps, second corps is now, oh, I'm not pointing at the morale, that's gone. So that's a bit rubbish. So that's going to be quite difficult for them as well. Obviously lost Ney, but it's all to play for. I mean, it looks now, yeah, it looks crazy out there, doesn't it? If you look at this just from where we are though. But there's something about playing these big games, the investment in it is, the excitement is palpable. So let's see. I'd be very surprised if Napoleon can last this day, but who knows? We'll give it a go.